The war had stopped making sense a long time ago, but it had never stopped making noise. Even now, as the last cruiser burned itself into a quiet spiral above the fractured horizon, he stood with the patience of someone who had outlived explanations. The ground beneath his boots pulsed faintly, as if the planet resented being used as a battlefield again. He couldn't blame it. If planets could file complaints, this one would have submitted a very long and very angry report. He checked the charge on his weapon out of habit, though there was nothing left to shoot. There was always nothing left to shoot at the end, and yet somehow there was always another war waiting just beyond the next jump. He had begun to suspect the universe was poorly organized, or lazy. You missed one. The voice did not belong to the battlefield. It was too calm, too precise, like a sentence that had been edited several times before being spoken. He turned slowly, because sudden movements tended to invite explosions, and he had reached his daily limit. She stood a short distance away, untouched by ash or gravity, as if both had politely decided not to bother her. At first glance, she looked human, but the illusion unraveled quickly. Her ears stretched long and elegant, tapering to subtle points, catching the dim light like they had their own quiet purpose. Her eyes held something worse than age, certainty. He glanced around, then back at her. If you're referring to the large number of things I didn't shoot, I'm going to need you to be more specific. She tilted her head slightly, as if adjusting reality to get a better angle. Timeline 78,421. You tripped over that rock and died before the third wave. He followed her gaze to a completely ordinary rock. He stared at it for a moment. That feels personal, he said. It was inefficient, she replied, so I removed it. He looked back at her, then at the rock again, now deeply suspicious. You removed a rock. I removed several outcomes, she corrected. The rock was part of them. He let out a slow breath. Of all the strange things he had encountered, sentient nebulae, sarcastic warships, a species that communicated entirely through interpretive dance, this was somehow the most concerning. You've been editing things. For a while, she said, as if discussing a hobby. You have a tendency to die in inconvenient ways. He considered this. I feel like dying is generally inconvenient. For me, she added, that paused him. Not the words, but the way she said them, like a fact she had accepted long before he had the chance to question it. He shifted his weight, the ground humming softly beneath him. And you are. She studied him, not like a stranger, but like someone checking if a familiar object had changed while she wasn't looking. Someone who got tired of watching you lose. He almost laughed, but it came out thinner than expected. You should have seen the last one. I was doing great right up until I was. I did, she said. You always are. There was a silence then, not empty, but full of things he couldn't quite reach. The sky above them flickered, just for a second, like a damaged screen trying to remember what it was supposed to display. He noticed. He always noticed things like that. That wasn't the sky, he said. No, she agreed. Should I be worried? She thought about it, which did not help. Not yet. He rubbed his face with one hand, dragging the fatigue across his features like it might fall off if he tried hard enough. You know, I had a plan after this. It involved not fighting anything for at least a week. That plan fails in most timelines, she said. Of course it does. She stepped closer, and the air seemed to adjust around her, like it was making room. He felt it, not pressure, not exactly, but a subtle shift, as if the universe had leaned in to listen. Up close, the details sharpened. The faint glow beneath her skin, the impossible stillness in her posture, the quiet defiance of her existence. You're tired, she said. That's one way to put it. You don't have to keep doing this alone. He looked at her, really looked this time, and something in his expression changed. Not softer, not yet, but less guarded. You're saying that like you're volunteering. I already have, she replied. He let out a short, disbelieving breath. You rewrote reality because I keep tripping over rocks. That was one of the smaller reasons. He almost smiled at that. Almost, I don't even know your name. You will, she said. That's not how names usually work. It is for us. He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. Somewhere behind them, the remains of the battlefield shimmered, fragments of something undone flickering at the edges of perception. He had the distinct feeling that if he turned around too quickly, he might see versions of himself that hadn't made it. So what now? He asked. She glanced upward, where the sky threatened to glitch again, then back at him. Now, she said, we try something different. He followed her gaze, then shook his head slightly. If this involves fewer explosions, I'm willing to consider it. She almost smiled. A small, unexpected curve that didn't quite belong to someone who could bend existence. I can't promise fewer, she said, but they might be more interesting. He sighed, but there was something lighter in it this time, something dangerously close to hope. That's not reassuring. It's honest. He nodded once, slow and deliberate, as if agreeing to something he didn't fully understand. All right, he said. Let's try your way. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the air shifted again, deeper this time, and far above them, something vast and unseen adjusted its course. He expected the universe to resist. It didn't. That was the first problem. They left the broken battlefield without a ship, without coordinates, without anything resembling a plan, and yet space folded around them like it had been waiting for instructions. He noticed immediately. Space was not supposed to behave like an obedient assistant. "You're doing that again," he said, watching the stars stretch into thin lines before settling into a new arrangement. "I'm not," she replied, which was technically not reassuring. "You're not bending reality." "I'm trying not to," she corrected. He pointed vaguely at everything. "Then what is all this?" She hesitated just slightly, and that was worse than confidence. "Residual compliance." He stared at her. "That sounds made up." "It's not. It sounds very made up." They stepped onto the surface of a station that hadn't existed a second ago. It assembled itself under their feet, panels sliding into place with quiet precision, like it was embarrassed to be seen arriving late. He crouched, tapped the floor, then knocked twice, just in case it had opinions. "Is this stable?" he asked. "It is now." "Was it not before?" She gave him a look. "You worry a lot for someone who walks into gunfire." "Gunfire makes sense," he said. "This doesn't. Floors shouldn't have timing issues." They moved forward together, the corridor lighting up ahead of them without being asked. He kept glancing at her, then at the walls, then back at her, as if trying to catch reality in the act of cheating. "So," he said, "how long have you been doing whatever this is?" "Long enough to get good at it." "That's not a number. It's not meant to be." He exhaled through his nose. "I'm starting to feel like my entire life has been a poorly supervised experiment." She tilted her head. "Not poorly supervised." He stopped walking. "That is not better." She almost smiled again, and this time it lingered a fraction longer, like she was getting used to the idea. "You survived." "I tripped over a rock," he reminded her. "In one version." He resumed walking, muttering something about rocks having personal vendettas. The station opened into a wide chamber, and beyond it, space stretched endlessly, calm in a way that felt suspicious. No fleets, no weapons, no immediate threats. He didn't trust it. Peace had a way of being temporary when it involved him. "You said we'd try something different," he said. "This feels different." "It is. And what exactly are we doing?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped closer to the transparent barrier and placed her hand against it. The stars beyond flickered, not violently, not like before, but gently, as if acknowledging her. "We're not running," she said, "and we're not fighting." He crossed his arms. "Those are my two best skills." "I know." "That's not encouraging." She turned to him, her expression quieter now, less certain in a way that felt new. "We're allowing something to happen." He narrowed his eyes. "That sounds like a third option I've never trusted." "It's not about trust." "That's exactly when it becomes about trust." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. It carried something, an energy, subtle but growing, like a thought forming just out of reach. He felt it first as a vibration, low and steady, not coming from the station but from somewhere deeper, somewhere that didn't have a clear direction. He looked around instinctively, hand moving toward his weapon before he stopped himself. "You feel that," he said. "Yes. Please tell me that's not another residual compliance situation." "It's not." "That somehow worries me more." The vibration shifted, becoming sharper, more focused. The air itself seemed to tighten, like it was bracing for something. He glanced at her, expecting control, explanation, anything that suggested she had planned this. She didn't. "This isn't me," she said quietly. He blinked. "You're sure?" "Yes. Completely sure." She looked at him. "Mostly." He sighed. "That word is going to get us killed." "Not this time." The space in front of them warped, not violently but with a strange precision, as if something was carefully pushing through layers that didn't quite want to open. Light bent inward, folding over itself, and for a brief second, he thought of all the battles he had survived, all the impossible things he had seen. None of them looked like this. Tell me we can shoot it if it goes wrong, he said. We can try. That's not confidence. It's honesty. The distortion tightened, then snapped into focus. At first it was small, barely noticeable. A flicker, a pulse, something that could have been ignored if the universe hadn't suddenly gone very, very still. Then it grew, slowly, deliberately, shaping itself into something that made no logical sense and yet felt undeniably alive. He stared at it, then at her, then back at it again. That's new, he said. Yes, that's really new. The small form shifted, light coiling into structure, into something with edges and movement and presence. It trembled once like it was testing existence, then settled. He took a cautious step forward. Is it supposed to do that? It's not supposed to exist, she said. Great, he muttered. We've upgraded from bending reality to breaking it. The thing moved again, and this time there was no mistaking it. Wings, small, unsteady, but unmistakable, unfolded from its sides. A faint glow traced their edges, pulsing in rhythm with something deeper. He froze. That's a dragon. Yes. He looked at her. That's a dragon. I can see that. He gestured at it, then at her, then at himself. Why is that a dragon? She didn't answer immediately. For once, she looked uncertain. I think, she said slowly, it's because of us. He let that settle for a moment, then shook his head. I was expecting something simpler. It's still forming. It has wings. It's adapting. It's staring at me. The small creature tilted its head, then made a soft sound, somewhere between a chirp and a distant echo. The air rippled gently around it. He stared back. I don't think it likes me. It does, she said. How can you tell? It hasn't destroyed anything yet. He considered that. That's a low bar. The dragon, because there was no other word for it, flapped its wings once, clumsily, lifting itself a few inches before dropping back down. The moment it touched the ground, the station flickered, just for a second like it had briefly forgotten how to exist. He pointed at it. That seems important. It is. We should probably do something. We're standing here. That counts. He rubbed his face again, slower this time. My life was simpler when things were trying to kill me. She stepped closer to the small creature, her expression softening in a way that made the surrounding space quiet down, as if it, too, was paying attention. This changes everything, she said. He looked at her, then at the dragon, then back at the endless stars beyond. Yeah, he said, I was afraid you'd say that. The first dragon learned to fly by ignoring every rule that tried to explain why it couldn't. It pushed itself off the floor of the station with a stubborn, uneven motion, wings catching something that wasn't quite air. The structure around them flickered again, panels phasing in and out like they were reconsidering their career choices. He stepped back immediately. That's going to break something, he said. It already has, she replied. That was fast. The dragon hovered, wobbled, then stabilized, its small body glowing faintly as if it had decided gravity was more of a suggestion. It turned in the air, studying them both with an unsettling curiosity. He crossed his arms. I don't like the way it's looking at us. It's learning. It's judging. It might be doing both. The dragon chirped again, louder this time, and the stars beyond the station shifted. Just slightly, but enough for him to notice. He stared out at them, then back at the creature. Okay, he said slowly. We need to talk about that. She nodded. We do. Because if that keeps happening, we're going to run out of galaxy. That's a possibility. He let out a breath that almost became a laugh. You say that like we can just get another one. She didn't answer, which was not the reassurance he was hoping for. The dragon drifted closer, circling them once before landing, more successfully this time. When its feet touched the surface, the station held steady, as if it had decided to cooperate. He noticed that too. It's stabilizing things, he said. Yes, that feels backwards. It's adapting, she said again, but there was something different in her voice now. Not uncertainty, understanding. He watched her, then the dragon, then the quiet, endless stretch of space beyond. For the first time in longer than he could remember, there were no incoming threats, no distant fleets, no countdown to the next fight. Just this. This is new, he admitted. You said that before. I mean it differently now. She looked at him, really looked, and whatever she saw seemed to settle something inside her. The dragon made a softer sound this time and moved closer to him. He stiffened instinctively. Don't, he said. I'm not equipped for this. It's not a weapon, she said. That's exactly what a dangerous thing would want me to think. The dragon nudged his hand. He froze. It nudged again, more insistently. He looked at her. If I lose a hand, I'm blaming you. You won't. That's not a guarantee. Mostly. He sighed, then cautiously lowered his hand. The dragon leaned into it, warm and steady, its glow dimming slightly as if matching his hesitation. He stood there, unmoving at first, then, slowly, his fingers shifted, brushing against its surface. Nothing exploded. He blinked. Huh. The dragon chirped, softer now, and the air around them eased, like something had clicked into place. He let out a quiet breath. That's not terrible. She smiled fully this time, no hesitation, no distance. Progress. He glanced at her. Don't get used to it. I already am. The station lights stabilized, the distant stars settling into their proper positions, no longer flickering or shifting unpredictably. The universe, for once, seemed to be holding still, not because it was forced to, but because it chose to. He noticed that too. It's not breaking anymore, he said. No, she replied. It's aligning. With what? She looked at the dragon, then at him. With us. He considered that, longer this time. His instinct was to question it, to push back, to find the flaw in something that sounded too simple for a universe this complicated. But the evidence was right in front of him. No war, no collapse, no endless cycle waiting to start again. Just this moment, holding together. I spent a long time thinking survival was the best I could do, he said quietly. And now. He looked at the dragon, at the way it leaned into his hand without fear, at the way the stars no longer trembled around her presence. Now I think I was wrong. The dragon shifted, then spread its wings again, stronger this time. It leapt, rising smoothly into the air, circling them once before darting toward the open expanse beyond the station. For a second, he tensed, but nothing followed. No destruction, no distortion, just motion. Controlled, alive, free. He watched it go, something unfamiliar settling in his chest. Not the sharp edge of readiness, not the weight of survival, something lighter. So, he said after a moment, what happens now? She stepped beside him, her presence no longer bending the world, just existing within it. Now, she said, we stop fighting what comes next. He let out a small laugh. That's going to take some practice. I know. He nodded, eyes still on the dragon as it traced quiet patterns through the stars. For the first time, he said, I think I've got time to learn. She didn't answer, but she didn't need to. The universe, once restless and uncertain, held steady around them, not rewritten, not forced, but finally at peace. By the time the fourth cycle of their journey began, the dragons had grown, not just in size, but in presence. Each of them carried a fragment of possibility, a pulse of reality that refused to be contained. He watched them from the observation deck of the station that had become their base, noting the way their wings rippled against the faint curvature of space, stirring starlight like liquid. He had spent decades running from wars, and yet here he was, learning to run toward something just as dangerous, responsibility in its most unpredictable form. You're staring again, she said, stepping beside him. The soft light caught the tips of her long ears, and he had to stop himself from reaching out, half expecting them to hum like antennae. I'm thinking, he said, which is dangerous for everyone. She smirked, the kind of small, sharp humor that had a habit of unbalancing him. Mostly for you. He let out a short laugh. Mostly for me, huh? That's fair. The dragons circled the station, each one exhibiting behaviors he hadn't anticipated. One curled through a gravity well, tracing loops that bent light and caused the stars to shimmer like water. Another emitted a low hum that seemed to synchronize with his heartbeat, and he noticed, oddly unsettlingly, that his pulse adjusted, calm yet alert. They were not merely creatures. They were extensions of him and her, physical manifestations of choices and outcomes tangled together in motion. You know, he said, I never thought I'd be raising dragons. I expected at least one moment where I could complain about something mundane. She raised an eyebrow. Mundane. He gestured vaguely toward the chaos of their offspring. This is chaos, and you call it progress. She laughed softly. Controlled chaos, if you must. He shook his head, smiling despite himself. I have to admit it's impressive, I just didn't expect to enjoy it. That's the trick, she said. You're not supposed to understand everything, only survive it. And sometimes, maybe even thrive. He looked at her then, really looked, and saw what she had always been, a guardian of possibilities. Someone who had rewritten existence not out of arrogance, but out of care. And for the first time, He realized he was no longer fighting the universe's chaos but dancing with it, stumbling occasionally, sure, but moving in time with something greater. A flash of light caught his attention. One of the dragons had taken to the void beyond the station, leaving trails of shimmering energy like comet tails. Another followed, and then all three formed a formation he recognized, not military, but deliberate. He watched them move with grace, coordinated yet free, and felt a strange mixture of pride and humility. "You've changed," she said quietly, not looking at him but at the stars. "I have." "Yes," she replied. "You used to survive, always reacting, always bracing for the worst. Now you anticipate, adapt, even enjoy the uncertainty." He considered that, watching the dragons. He could feel it in his bones. He had become part of the flow he once resisted. Not invincible, not omnipotent, but attuned to a universe that no longer sought to crush him. "Do you ever get tired of controlling everything?" he asked, half joking. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but the dragons remind me that some things cannot and should not be controlled." He nodded, and here I thought I was done learning patience. The dragons chirped in response, soaring upward in a burst of light, weaving through space like threads in a cosmic tapestry. He felt their energy, their presence, and realized they were more than creatures. They were hope, potential, and a kind of love that bent reality without demanding it. "You know," he said finally, "maybe some wars are worth fighting after all. Not the ones that end in fire, but the ones that end in this." She turned to him, eyes reflecting the light of the drifting stars and the glow of their children. "This is only the beginning," she said. He smiled, a slow, genuine smile, the weight of endless battles lifting in a way he had thought impossible. "Then let's make it a good one." And for the first time in a lifetime, he didn't feel the pull of survival. He felt the thrill of living, of building, of guiding something extraordinary with someone extraordinary beside him. The dragons rose higher, their light bending space gently around them, a living constellation that promised more than victory. It promised change, growth, and a future written by their own hands. He reached for her hand, and she took it, long ears brushing his arm like a question and an answer wrapped into one. Together, they watched the universe settle, not perfectly, but beautifully, as if it too had learned to laugh at its own unpredictability. The wars behind him were ashes. The future ahead was a dragon's flight. And he, for the first time, was ready.